Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of In the Art Scene.
Yes, and this is episode number 9. And we're talking to a very interesting young artist today. Her name is Courtney Edgerson. It's Courtney Simone Art on Instagram, and I highly suggest you go and check her out because her art is mind-blowing.
I was going to ask what makes it so mind-blowing, but we don't want to steal the thunder of the actual episode. But can you give us just a little teaser as to what makes her unique?
Long story short, she's adapting a very interesting style of portraiture, combining it with abstract and playing with proportions, and at the same time including very important social messages.
So it's kind of like looking into a funhouse mirror, but getting a really important message out of it.
Yeah, you can say that.
Well, after you all listen to this episode, you'll probably be saying that too. So why don't we get into it?
Let's get started. Tell me a little bit about yourself. When did you know that you were an artist?
Yeah, so I started doing art, I would say, really early on when I was a kid before, before it was something that like you could do as like a, side job or something. So like just as early on as like probably 6, I believe, I just picked up a pencil. I have a lot of members of my family who are artists or who are into art. So my aunt, she was an art teacher in Los Angeles actually for years. And she was one of the biggest influences I had in my life early on, who introduced me to art. And so she would always have like various art supplies that she would give me. And so yeah, I would say my early childhood is when I like picked up a pencil and crayons and colored pencils, and I just would draw every day. And then I just kind of went from there, just with just my general interest in art.
Yeah, you mentioned something that that's like a side job or side hustle. Did you know when you were 6 that that's going to be a job or a side hustle?
No, not at all. Like I never looked at it that way early on. Obviously I was just curious and just a child interested in art. Yeah, so which is good because I feel like we need to go back to that time sometimes in our life when we're just like too, overthinking things, maybe like going back and just remembering when we were a child before all of the logistics went into it and just kind of like creating just to create. So yeah, definitely at that time, of course, I wasn't looking at it in that way, but
Yeah, and
yeah.
you're right. Logistics of being an adult is killing creativity sometimes.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
And you're a full-time artist now. Is that right?
I'm actually not full time, but yeah, I have a job. I have a full-time job actually. I work with adults with intellectual and developmental delays.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I do my art after work pretty much and on the weekends or when I have days off. But I put the rest of my time toward my art. I'd love to be full-time one day, just not now, but yeah. So I'm working artist.
Do you use your art or do you incorporate art in any way at your day job?
Yeah, so I work right now. One of the recent projects actually that I did. So the clients we have at the house, there's 4 guys right now that live there, and they all have intellectual disabilities. So schizophrenia, bipolar, things like that. And so we're working a lot on helping managing their behaviors. And so one of the things we do is work with a BCBA, so a board certified behavior analyst. And he comes in and he writes the programs for them. And then the rest of the staff, like we help execute those programs. So one of the things I had done recently was we made like a store for them in the house so that they can work toward earning like, play money in order to buy like different items that they want. So they don't have to use their own money. And so one of the things I did was I helped make the whole, I guess, board that they can see and that they can visually see like, oh, I earned $5. And so like I was really excited about that because it was the most creative, I guess you can say, like part of doing something at my job. So in that way, yeah, I'll be able to use like the little elements of creativity here and there. As far as like arts and crafts and things like that, we can do that with the guys, but sometimes they're not as interested. But yeah, there's a lot of room for, I guess, creativity to be used in some way. So I'm always trying to like insert myself in those areas at work. So yeah.
This is a very important humanitarian job that you do. I wonder how it feeds your soul as an artist.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely different as far as like, when I come home from work, I get to do art and paint and just kind of escape from like different aspects of the day. But when I'm at my day job, it's more so like people interactions and just having to like, communicate a lot. And so it's definitely different. But I think that it's a nice balance because I don't know necessarily if I had like a creative type of job, how I would feel when I got home from work with wanting to jump back into creativity again. Because I feel like it's something that you have to sit down and work at. I think too, a lot of times people think creativity is just like, it's just going to come to you. And sometimes that's the case, but sometimes you need to like make room for it. And so I think that if I had like a job where I was doing a lot of creative work in the day with my using my creative brain and then coming home, I don't know if I would feel like depleted by the end of the day and not wanting to paint or anything. So I think that it's definitely a nice balance for me. So yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy the differences it has.
Yeah, you're right. I heard of some creative people who do creative work at their day jobs. They would say that the creative juices just, drain during the day, and when you go home, you don't want to get to your studio and do anything else because like all of that was left at the day job already. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I understand.
I was actually the reason I contacted you is I found you on Instagram and I just fell in love with your I didn't even know if you call it a portraiture, the paintings of the women that you do. So unusual and so vivid. They are abstract and at the same time they have this like very vivid personalities. So I wanted to ask you about that. How long ago did you start doing them, and how did you come up with this style with the, a tiny little head and the proportionally big body, and it's just I'm just curious about
Yeah.
what goes into it because sometimes you find them in the very abstract backgrounds and sometimes you put them in such a like easy day-to-day situations. They are just
Hmm.
adorable. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much. Yeah. So I started doing, I guess I'm trying to think when I started my Instagram. I feel like I've gone through so many different styles, I guess you can say, but I started doing illustrations, I would say a few years ago. I got really into illustration work and just drawing people. And I really enjoyed it. I thought I was going to do more like storybook type stuff, but I don't know. I was always fascinated by abstract art and different artists that I follow on Instagram that do like more abstract work. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I want to do abstract art, but I also love doing illustration. And I don't know, they kind of are so drastically different when you look at them. Um, but I don't know. I earlier in 2020 actually was when I first started painting abstract work. I had always had an eye for it and like a desire to do it, but I never did it. And then it wasn't until 2020 where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just try to like make an abstract painting and see what happens. And so I kind of just started doing that, and that picked up really well as far as like engagement. I noticed I started to get different followers that were like really interested in abstract art. And then in the back, I still had my illustration style there. And then it wasn't until I would say toward the end of 2020 or so, I was like, let me see if I can just try to combine both of the elements. And I did a series called the Mundane Women series. And that's kind of where it started, where I was like doing my illustrations and drawing women painting women and then also adding like abstract elements to it. I've kind of been calling it abstract expressionism. So I don't know if that's the right like term or style for what I do, but um it has like realistic elements as far as like they're people, but then there's also abstract, they have abstract proportions, like you said. And that just came from me not really like, I don't love super realistic drawings. Like I can do it if I really sat down and like took the time. But I don't know, I just really like making the body proportions different and stepping out of what is normal or what's seen as like the right way and then doing like just implementing different ways that you can look at a person. And I like drawing like the tiny heads because I'm also I love, sometimes I like drawing the faces, but when I was doing my illustrations before, like years ago, I would always draw their eyes closed. I don't know why, but I don't know, like drawing eyes, sometimes I can never get them correct, like even. So I'm like, you know what? Why draw eyes, you know? So I would just draw like their eyes closed. And then now sometimes I add eyes, sometimes I don't. So yeah, it's just, I think it was more so, it started out of like my exploration through discovering my style of abstract versus illustration. So yeah.
Can you tell a little bit more about that series of Mundane Women? What is it about and how many paintings you did?
Yeah. So I believe I did, oh my gosh, was it 8 or 10 paintings? I need to go back and count, but that one started because I was kind of going through the whole 2020 motions of like going to work. Like I actually still had to get up and go to work. I know a lot of people were able to work from home, which was like a dream. I was like, oh, I wish I could work from home. But I had to like still get up and go to work. But yet we were still all going through the same thing, like as far as like the pandemic and everything. So I remember just feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm getting up, going to work, coming home. I can't go anywhere. This was like early quarantine. And I just started to feel like super mundane. Like everything was just feeling like the same every day. And it was just like kind of really like, I don't know, I was getting into this like depressed state of like, like, is this it? Like we're stuck. And I'm a super introvert, like homebody anyway. So like normally that's like not a problem. But when like everybody's staying home together, it's kind of like, okay, like I kind of want to get out now. And so yeah, so I was kind of just like thinking about the mundane and like how life is just more mundane normally than it is like extravagant. Like we don't always do like these amazing things every single day, but how do we like still enjoy life even though it is mundane? And so that's kind of where the thought came from, where I wanted to like embrace just everyday mundane things because that's life. Like we do things that are boring and not fun all the time. And like, how do we still just enjoy life and go about, our everyday? And so I wanted to highlight that message basically with the series is just like creating these women doing mundane things and just, still finding the beauty within it and celebrating that. So that's pretty much where that series came from and my message behind it. And just, I kind of want to always reiterate that to people. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. I guess it was kind of a therapeutic work for you to kind of remind yourself that yeah, everyday life still has its beauty, and what we are experiencing right now is not that different from what was before. Is
Mhm.
just the idea that the world is heavy and dark right now
Yeah.
makes you feel bad. But if you look around, not much has changed, especially if you, like you said, you're a homebody and you're doing it anyway every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a great message. And those paintings are absolutely adorable. I love every single one of them.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I had a lot of fun creating it and just the stories that people would tell me after too, like of stuff that they were going through. And
Can you share any of those stories?
oh yeah. Just like, different, I had like different moms or just like people that were like, yeah, like I'm, stuck at home and I work from home and I have my art on the side, but it's, I work from my kitchen table, and I think like just like mundane things that they would go through, and then just seeing like, wow, like how the message kind of, highlighted areas in their life where they may have felt like kind of going through the motions every day and not feeling excited, and but just like taking a step back and being like, I can find the beauty in it. And there was one piece that I did where it was a woman hanging clothes on the clothesline,
Mhm.
and that is like seemingly a very mundane task, like laundry. It's not so fun to everyone. But I shared a story about how like I grew up in one house that I lived for a really long time, where we had a clothesline in the backyard, and we, just because we didn't have a dryer that worked or something like that, I forget if I think we didn't have a dryer, yeah. And so we had a clothesline, and I was sharing the story of like hanging the clothes on the clothesline. Like I remember it being so like, it was mundane, but yeah, it was so pretty, like seeing the clothes like flow in the wind and stuff like that. And so one person reached out to me and was saying how her grandmother, that was what she did. And it basically, the piece like helped remind her of her grandmother and like things, that the memories that they shared together. And so I just thought that was really cool, like just hearing
Yeah.
different people's perspectives on it.
Yeah, it is really nice.
Yeah.
Right. I also know that you're making jewelry.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about your jewelry?
Yeah. So I started doing earrings early. I don't know, it was the end of last year, 2020, as well, when I was collecting all of the paint scraps and stuff from painting. I have a palette where the paint peels off easily, which is nice. But I was just collecting them because I don't know, I didn't feel like throwing them away. And I was like, maybe I can do something with this. I don't know. And I didn't know right away that I would end up making earrings with them, but I just started collecting them in a mason jar, and they just kept building. And then one day I was like, you know what, let me see if I can just like figure out what to do with all of these like leftover paint scraps. And so I shared it on Instagram, what I had. And I was like, I have all these paint scraps, I want to do something. And I asked like people for suggestions on what they thought I should do. And a lot of people said like, oh, you can make like like an art piece on canvas, or they were just sharing different ideas. And the idea of doing earrings popped in my head, but I was like, oh, I don't know. And then someone mentioned like, you should try doing earrings. I could see earrings. And I'm like, huh. And so I like thought about it more, and I was like, let me see, like, how would I do earrings if I did use these? And so I remember having these little wooden square pieces that I
Mhm.
had from a previous project. And I was like, what if I just put the paint scraps on the wooden pieces and then make some type of like abstract earring out of it? And so I just did like a sample one just to see, and I really liked it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, why don't I just do this? And so I just put it out there. I made like a few, and then I shared it, and then I got a really good response from people that liked it. And so then I just kind of went from there, and then I sold out of the first uh launch of them. Not right away. I mean, it was crazy. Like I had kept promoting it and like putting it out there. And then the launch day, I sold like half, and then gradually from there just people kept
Wow.
purchasing them. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess people like earrings. Yeah. And so like I thought it was just a cool way to like extend my artwork out, something different than just painting, because I don't know about you, but I feel like I go through waves of like, I'm really interested in painting this, and then I get bored, and then I want to do something else.
Totally the
Yeah.
same thing. Totally the same thing. And it's
Yeah.
actually very funny because I was looking at your earrings and I was thinking to myself, like, oh, they look like artist palettes. And I
Hmm.
wonder if you're doing it on purpose. But now when you're saying that you were actually using the scrap paint from your palettes,
Oh
it
yeah.
all totally makes sense. It totally makes sense.
That's so cool. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, they do. Like when you look at them, it looks like a little palette basically. But yeah, so I do use like a lot of paint mediums, like there's a like modeling paste. I don't know if you're
Uh-huh. Oh, I love
familiar.
that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like I use modeling paste and a lot of different like paint mediums to like have the paint scrap stick onto so that it will stay. But yeah, so it's just a lot of like playing around and testing different things. But Yeah, it's really fun. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. It's a nice break from just like painting. So yeah, and it opens up the my audience, I guess, for people that are interested in only earrings, and then some people only are interested in artwork. So it's a nice different balance.
Are you selling them only on your website or you have Etsy shop?
So I'm selling them on my website right now. I do have an Etsy that I had originally before I started my website, which is still up, but it's not super updated. I still have artwork on there, but so I'm trying to figure out a way to like still, because I know I was generating some type of like audience from Etsy where people were finding me. So I still kind of want to keep it just to have like a way to reach different people that are just only on Etsy. So I'm trying to figure out a way to do that where I can just maybe sell, I don't know, artwork or paintings that don't do sell on my site, or I don't know. Trying to figure that out. But yeah, I do have an Etsy, but the earrings are sold on my site right now.
I'll make sure to include both links on your Etsy shop and on your website in the blog
Thank you.
post and in the show notes, so people will
Thank
know how
you.
to find you. I'll put all the links, your Instagram, because it's absolutely it's an eye candy. I just
Oh,
keep
thank you.
scrolling through. Yeah. And I
Oh.
believe I recently went to your website because I was thinking about buying a pair of earrings for myself. I think they were all sold out.
Yeah,
Are you going to
the
make more?
yeah. So the first launch has sold out, but I am making more right now, and I'm launching March 23rd actually. So it's a
Nice.
Tuesday. Yeah, it's 10 a.m. EST for anyone on my newsletter list. So I'm gonna open the site early for that, and then at 11 o'clock I'll announce it on Instagram.
I'm afraid this podcast will be live way after that. So I
Okay, no
hope I hope
worries.
people who are listening to this episode will actually be able to catch some leftovers after your lunch.
Yeah, I know. It's fine. I'm sure there will hopefully be some more. If not, I like to continue making them, and yeah, so there'll be something, I'm sure. Yeah.
All right. I think I forgot to ask you about if you have any art education or you're completely self-taught.
Yeah, so I actually okay, so because I was so interested in art early on, I knew that I used to always tell people like, "Oh, I want to be an artist when I grow up," and all of that, even though I didn't know what that meant as a child. I just knew I liked painting and drawing and all of that. So it wasn't until high school actually where I took my first like art class. You know how they offer like electives and things like that. So I took art, and that's where I got introduced to like different types of painting, like watercolor. And I think even like the lower grade paint before like acrylic is like tempera paint or something.
Uh-huh.
I was doing paints like using that type of paint. And so I took classes like in high school, and then I ended up going to college for child development actually, because I knew that at the time I remember wanting to go to art school, and like I thought I was going to go into like fashion design or interior design or something like that. And I told my dad, and he was not excited about me going to art school. He was like, no, you need to go to a real school and get like an actual degree and all of that, which at the time was like devastating because I'm like, no, I just want to do art. So I remember, listening to my family and just going to regular university because I was like, okay, fine, like I'll just do it, I'll still pursue art in some way. But I'm just going to go to like a regular university. So ended up going to Cal State Northridge in the Valley. And I majored in child development because that was like the closest thing I was interested in that I could still somehow use art in some way. But I like enjoy working with kids. And so I did that. And then I minored in art because I was like, if I can't just have it as my main field, then I'll minor in it. And sorry, I don't know if my niece is like screaming. Um, yeah, so I minored in art, and which is interesting because they ended up just giving me a ton of children's art classes. So like preparing me to like be a teacher for art for kids, which is not what I wanted to do, but I was like, okay. So as far as background and like formal education, that's pretty much really what I had was just like different art classes. I did like painting, figure drawing, and a lot of different like art classes geared toward teaching art.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as far as like anything other than that, no. So everything else, everything I do now is kind of just like little bits of what I remember from school, but also just from practice and like doing my own thing. So yeah.
I think in a way it's actually a best combination. I actually went to fashion design school and after 2 years, so I did 4 years, and after 2 years I
Mhm.
switched from the actual design to pattern making,
Oh,
for like
cool.
sewing, because the same reason, because I thought, well, the design world is so like it's not a real career and you have to do a real job and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
and I ended up not doing that job, and I was doing marketing for 15 years, and
Yeah.
look at me now, right?
Yeah. I
Art
always,
is still, yeah, art is still finding you no matter what you do.
yeah. That's actually funny because that's something I always say is that your passion will find you. So like no matter what you end up doing, like I feel like somehow whatever you're truly passionate about will always somehow find its way back in. So I try to tell people that are like going into school, I'm like, just do what you want to do because like at the end of the day, like you're probably, society will tell you to do one route and then you might do it, but then you end up finding yourself back to where you wanted to be in the first place. So to just to just do what you want to do. But yeah, that's funny. I relate. That was me too. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
you're totally not alone. One of my dearest friends, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to a few episodes. She was, I believe, in the episode number 3. Her name is
Hmm.
E Gold. She's 94 years old, and
Wow.
she's still an active artist. And she's been a creative kid. She's literally telling her story from the childhood, all
Hmm.
the way through today, basically. She went to art school in New York, and then for the university, art was very difficult to get as a major, and I think very
Hmm.
expensive. So she ended up getting art as minor,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
she did the child development, and she ended up
Oh
working
wow.
as a teacher, and
Hmm.
she founded a nonprofit organization working with kids with disabilities in LA. But she's been doing
Wow.
art all her life, and she calls herself an artist, and she's still doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I definitely feel like art, like being an artist is something that just like it's just who you are. So like no matter what path you end up taking, yeah, like you can still consider yourself an artist. Like you don't have to
yeah,
necessarily be working in a field where you're doing art every day, but if that's just like who you are, so yeah.
yeah. I totally agree. So,
Yeah.
did you actually end up working with children or not?
I did. So during college, I ended up, it was funny. I was working at a debt collection agency.
Uh huh.
I call it like a fake debt collection agency because it was literally for the New York, or not New York Times, LA Times, like the newspaper. And it was like different people that didn't pay their like LA Times bill, which is like not real. Like, I don't know. I'm like, do people have like an account for that? I don't know. But we had to basically call people who didn't pay their bill and then try to get the bill, and they were thought it was a joke and they would hang up on us, and it was terrible. I really hated that job. And I was working there and I was like, oh, this is so, I don't like this. The schedule was really bad, and I was going to school for child development. I was like, I should try to find a job like working with kids at least. And so that's how I ended up in the field that I am now, working with adults with delays and intellectual disabilities and autism, is because I found a job working as a respite care provider.
Hmm.
So for children with autism. And from there, I ended up doing like behavior therapy, which is what I do now. And so it's working with children with and adults with autism. And so that's the job I had. A good majority of college was just doing that. and driving around town, driving around LA to different homes and like helping families with their children. And so, yeah, it was really enjoyable. I loved it. I did that basically, yeah, throughout college. And then now I work with adults mainly, but yeah, so I still kind of had my child development degree somewhere in there.
Did you ever do children art classes?
I didn't necessarily teach children. So I did do art classes. There was one year where I taught just like painting, like paint and sip type classes. So I was working a job where I was actually working at a school. It was a school where all the children were kicked out of public school. So they all had really extreme behaviors, but no type of like help toward those behaviors. And it was a really, really, really intense job. And I remember being there, like I would come home crying some days because it was just so much. And I ended up leaving that job, and I was sitting outside of this place where I would drive by frequently, and I always thought like the area looked cool, but I didn't know it was over there. And I ended up ended up being a coffee shop. And so I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like there's this random coffee shop that's like hidden in this little cute area that I had no idea. And I'm like driving by here every day. And so I ended up talking to the manager, and I just wanted to know if they were interested in having like artwork on their walls because it was such a big coffee shop. And the manager was like, yeah, we would love that. And she was like, also, if you want to teach art classes, I don't know if you teach art classes, but we have like a whole space right here. And I remember at the time being like, yeah, I do. Even though I hadn't taught art at all, I was just like, I could figure it out. Sure. And so I was like, yeah, I would love to do that. And so she let me use the space once a month. She was like, you can use it once a month, two times a month, however many days you want, like you can use it. And I'm like, okay. And so I ended up just doing once a month, and I taught art classes there, just like self-promoted. I had, put the word out on like Facebook and Instagram, and then I just kind of built it from word of mouth essentially. And so I did that for like a whole year. And it wasn't children, but it was just like different people that were interested in doing art. And then from there, I taught at a retirement home from a friend who worked there. She was saying they needed a spot for like the entertainment segments. And so she was like, if you want to do art for the elderly, you can come here. And so I did that for a little bit. And so I've taught art in different aspects, pretty much all self-taught though. Like it wasn't, something that I had learned how to do. It was just kind of like, let me just make a painting and then try to show people how to do this. But yeah, I haven't taught actual like little kids, which I'm kind of glad. I love children, but I'm like, yeah, they're a lot. So I wonder how that would go with like teaching little children. So
Are you still teaching?
I am not teaching any live classes right now because, well, I had considered doing it again. I did it for like a year, and then I ended up moving out of state, which I ended up moving back. So I had stopped doing it, and I had thought like, okay, when I moved back to California, I'll pick it up again. And then I don't know, like the pandemic hit, I moved back. So I moved to Texas for like a year. I feel like I've been everywhere. I moved to Texas for like a year. And then when I moved back, it was January of 2020. And then I was like considering doing classes again, but then the pandemic hit in March. And so I was like, maybe not. So I'm kind of glad I didn't start it up again, because then that would have just been kind of like having to close it. So
I know. Yeah. I started doing my classes in January 2020. And then the pandemic hit, and I just quickly moved everything online. I actually had, I had pretty good students coming online from all over the world. Actually, you put it
so
out there.
cool.
Like I had no idea. I had people from Australia, South Africa, India, some locals from here from San Diego.
That's so cool.
So
Were
pretty
you
interesting? Yeah.
Yeah. Were you teaching the classes at like a studio, or did you have like a location, or was it all digital?
I actually know. In January last year when I started with live classes at the local Michael's, because they have an art classroom kind of thing, and you sign up as a teacher. And you just you put it on their website so people can see it on their website and they can sign up, and you can
Yeah.
bring like little flyers and put it on the front desk where people can at the registry, they can just see it, or
Yeah.
make a poster and put it on their window. They allow you to do that, and also
Yeah.
self-promotion on Facebook and stuff. So I just posted
Yeah.
on the neighborhood groups and on the Facebook, like, hey, anyone
Hmm.
wants to come? But it's a very it's a very small local area. We have only one Michael's here. But
Yeah.
I had pretty good groups of like 6 at a time.
Yeah.
And then pandemic started. I was like, oh my God, what I'm gonna do?
I know. Gosh, I feel like the pandemic made us all kind of get creative with
Yes,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Ugh, but that's good that you were able to do like virtually. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was blessed to meet people from all over the world this way.
Yeah. That's
It's
so
pretty cool.
cool. Yeah.
Cool. So
That's
how did
fun.
you enjoy teaching actually? Would you pick it up again when the pandemic is over and stuff?
Yeah, so it was definitely a step out of my comfort zone when I started it. I remember being like, sure, I'll do it, even though I had no idea how I was going to start it. And then once it got going, it was definitely scary the first day, but then I did it again and I just kept doing it. And then I got more used to it. I got used to like my teaching style, I guess you can say. It was always such a buildup though to the day when it would like get closer. I remember getting like a lot of like anxiety, like, oh my gosh, even though I've been doing it, I'm like, why am I nervous? Like, why am I scared or whatever? But once it was over, I remember feeling so just excited and empowered and just like, oh my gosh, like it was fine. You know, everything was fine. And I did enjoy it. I definitely feel like if I do it again, it would have to be something that's more intuitive to me because I know at the time I was just kind of like painting pictures that I thought people would like, which some I mean most of them they did really like it, but I wasn't feeling super like inspired or happy with the paintings. I was just kind of like making stuff that I thought looked good for people to do. And so I was feeling like a little not as inspired some days. Like I remember like going to the class and being like, oh, I didn't really want to paint this, but I couldn't think of anything else. And then so I remember just getting really into my head at the time. So yeah, I did enjoy it. I liked the process, but it was also like sometimes I found it a little bit stressful and I was doing it completely on my own. I remember one month I had to hire someone to help me because I was like, I had sold out. It was 20 people there
Wow.
taking the class that day. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to teach and like try to take pictures for social media and try to like, help everybody. And so I remember having someone help me. But if I do it again, I definitely feel like I would do something more true to me, like what I'm more interested in now and maybe even doing something like abstract because I think at
Mm-hmm.
the time it was not abstract work. It was more so like pictures, actual visual stuff that people knew what they were painting. But I think now if I do it, I'm really into like a lot of like mental health and just like art as therapy. So I think I would want to gear it more toward that space, like just painting intuitively and
That's what I do.
seeing. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so fun.
I do teach intuitive abstract with it is geared kind of by the art therapy
Hmm.
and a little bit of a meditation, kind of a
Yeah.
self-observation stuff. But have you ever
Yes.
thought about teaching your style?
Yes, kind of like that's I think where I was leading toward like wanting to do something like that, where it's like just because the way I paint is very, I don't have like a set steps, I guess you can say. It's all
Hmm.
very like intuitive, like you said. And so I think that's what I want to do is if I do classes again, whether it be virtual or in person, it will definitely be more of like an intimate setting where maybe there's like 5 people or 4, and then just kind of incorporating like journaling too, like
Hmm.
writing,
Hmm.
because I'm really into writing as well. And so I think that whole aspect of bringing like the journal aspect to it with the art, yeah, I definitely, yeah, I would love to do that. I would love to be able to share like
I'll take a class
different.
from you.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Thank you. maybe, I mean, you live in San Diego, so we could totally do like an art day and just like,
Yeah, let's do that.
hang out.
Oh, I can drive down to Temecula.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can
there's a
do
lot
that.
of there's big parks over here too where it's like really spacious and there's like a lot of just beautiful scenery. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
we can do the trade. I'll do the class for you. You will do a class for me.
Yes, that sounds fun. I would love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned journaling and writing. That's
Hmm.
something I didn't know about you.
So yeah, my writing, a lot of the captions I make on Instagram, if you scroll back, like a lot of them sometimes are really wordy and just like I do a lot of my writing in the captions where I'll share just like an inspirational thing or I don't know, I'll just kind of it's more like a journal entry sometimes. So I really enjoy the writing aspect of my creativity. I use an app on my phone called Journey, and
Uh-huh.
it just saves all of your writings from like whenever you started it. It'll give the date, it'll give even the weather that the time of day, all that kind of thing. And so sometimes I'll sit down and I'll just like commit to writing, and then kind of like how I do art, but I'll just like set a time and I'm gonna write something for 20 minutes and whatever comes out. Yeah, I really enjoy that type of expression as well. I was into, I don't know if you've heard of the book, The Artist's Way
Yes.
by Julia Cameron. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I tried my best to do 3 pages, the morning pages. I failed after like 3 days. I couldn't.
It's hard. I know. When I first did it, I made the mistake of buying like a really big journal, and I'm like, why did I do this? Because it's just 3 pages is a lot, and so I ended up getting a smaller journal, so it's like more doable. But it's still really hard sometimes writing like 3 whole pages of like
Yeah.
nothingness, I guess you can say. And so I started doing that, and that has helped me a lot with just writing and not thinking about it and just putting it out there. So yeah, I'm really a fan of that type of style. So yeah, journaling, art, and all that kind of stuff go kind of hand in hand for me.
That's really cool. I haven't done journaling in years. I'm trying to get to it. I have like a number of different sketchbooks, and I keep like one of them is for pastels, and the other one is for acrylic, and the other one is for.
Yeah.
But all of them are like half full. I don't do
Yeah.
any writing. I remember in high school there was like a big thing. We were doing those journals with little illustrations and some words, and the words would be decorated and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then I kept the diary for years, and then
Oh,
all of a sudden
cool.
I stopped and I never picked it up again. So
Oh,
I don't know.
wow.
I would be interested. I think I went to one workshop in Carlsbad, and a woman was talking about intuitive mixed. She was doing mixed media, and she was teaching intuitive journaling, but
Mm-hmm.
it was so underwhelming, so I kind of didn't pick it up. So I would wonder, how would you teach that? So I would definitely try.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that too. Like, what would I even do if I taught writing, like a writing workshop with art? I do like the idea. There was someone I saw do it recently, and they were dealing with like a lot of like trauma. And so they were writing stuff down that was, a bad memory or something that they had that was like a negative thought. And they like write it out, with no intention for anyone else to see it. But it's like they're writing it on this canvas and then they paint it over it, and then I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's such a good idea to like, and it's like therapeutic in a way because
yeah,
no one's looking at it. It's just personal to the person and they're writing their own thing. And then they get to paint over it. It's like showing like, it's still here, but like we're gonna write like a new story over this.
yeah,
And so I
totally,
like, yeah, like I like that kind of idea behind it.
totally.
Just like nothing too crazy, but just kind of like we're gonna write, we're gonna like express, but also we're gonna paint too. So
Yeah, that was something when I first started doing this intuitive painting class last year.
mm-hmm.
I had like a whole scenario of first kind of bringing people to the point where they don't really care about what they put on the canvas. So it's kind of more of a flow, intuitive. And then I did like associations with a bad memory, and then associations with a good memory, and the good memory is kind of overlaying the bad memory. So that was like
Yeah.
a wrap up the whole class. And I can tell you, people were leaving the class with absolutely different eyes.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
different eyes. The transformation, and like you can see on their faces that they were processing something. That's so
Yeah.
powerful.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. I took a class like several years ago. It was in Poway, so in San Diego, and it was by this lady that I met through a family friend, and I didn't even know her, but my friend recommended. She was like, "You should take this class. It's really fun." And I was like, "Okay." And it was an investment at the time. It was $100, and I remember
Wow.
thinking like, "Oh my gosh, like I don't spend that much on like one."
That's a lot.
Yeah, like even the classes that I was teaching, I was charging $25 each, and that included like the canvas and everything. But I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, this is such an investment, but like I'm just gonna do it." And so I remember taking the class, and it was a journaling, like an art journaling class. And it was so like I remember going there, she gave you a journal, like a sketchbook, and she basically walked us through different techniques and how to kind of use art and journaling together, and like different writing prompts that she gave us. And like it was such a really cool experience. And I remember leaving feeling like, oh my gosh, I was so inspired. It was like maybe the class was probably like an hour or so, but I remember just like leaving feeling like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. Like I had like all these different tools now to like start doing art journaling. And so I think a lot of times people are just really interested in like the experience that they get from it, and like leaving feeling like inspired. Like
Yeah.
that's usually what I want people to feel when they leave, is like inspired, empowered, all of that. So I feel like it was definitely worth it at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, like and I went again like 2 other times after that because it was just so good.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
great experience. Yeah, I love when I have experiences like that, and it's certainly what I'm aiming for when I'm doing a classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap it up, um, the final question probably that I have is, what's your next steps? What's your vision for the future? Where are you going to head with your art practice in the near future?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this actually the other day. I was like, just being really like reflective and just kind of like, okay, what do I want to do next? Like I just ended this collection of paintings that I did, and then I'm releasing the earrings in a week as well with the art. And I was like, okay, well, am I gonna keep making art series? Like, what am I gonna do? Like kind of just thinking about that. So one thing that I really, really want to do that is like a passion project and something that I like keep putting back. Maybe you can help me with this. Is I really want to start a podcast too. Like I
Oh,
was gonna mention that to you when you messaged me. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. Like I've never been on a podcast. So this is my first like feature on a podcast. But I really I'm like obsessed with podcasts. Like I listened to podcasts before it was like before they had like an app on your
uh-huh.
phone for it. It was like back when you had to like,
RSS thing.
yeah, like you had to
Uh-huh.
go on iTunes and like
Yeah,
click
yeah.
podcasts. Like so like I remember like being a fan of podcasts ever since then. And I always thought like, oh, that'd be cool to do one day, but like never really like pursuing it. But I love the idea of like, yeah, like talking to different creatives like this, and just like, I don't know, that's something that I want to do one day. Hopefully soon. I need to like just get out of my head and just do it. But I want to, as far as like art and creativity, yeah, I want to take my writing further with my art, and just, I don't know what that looks like. If that's like writing a book, I don't know. um, but I like to incorporate my art with that as well, more so. And yeah, just kind of like building more of like connections with people and like experiences on top of just the art. Like I know that it's fun to just create and make art, but I like the whole having like experiences with people, and like sharing stories. I don't know if that like answered the question, but yeah, just continuing to put out artwork, connecting with other creatives, hopefully doing a podcast. And then I do want to like try to get art into maybe stores, maybe one day, like Nordstrom or something, and just like kind of branching out from just social media, but like seeing other avenues where I can like get artwork out.
So
to the
building a
world.
serious art business and make it
Yeah.
your full-time job.
I know.
Good for
I'm
you.
like,
Yes, you
yeah.
you should definitely do that.
Yeah. So it's crazy because there's so many different avenues you could take with art, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it's so yeah. So I'm hoping to like explore more of that and just see what else I could do. So yeah.
What's your favorite art podcast? I have a few that I'm listening to, but maybe you can recommend me something else.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one that it's similar to, isn't yours called like In the Studio or something? Like, what's
In the
the
art
title?
scene is my
In
podcast.
the art scene. Okay. There's
That's
one
that's the one you were going to be on.
yes, that one. I need to go and like get all my podcast stuff in order. But there's another one called In the Studio.
In the studio.
I don't know if you've heard of them. It's two friends, and they basically just interview different artists around the world, and they go in different series. So like I want to say they're on like season 3 possibly, but they do a really good podcast together where they just talk to different creatives. What else is there? I like Andy J Pizza. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, his name is Andy. Oh my gosh, what's his last name? Now I'm drawing a blank. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his last name, but he goes by Andy J Pizza. But it's Andy J Miller. That's his real name, but he goes by Andy J Pizza. But he has a podcast on like the business side of art. He talks a lot, like he's an artist, an illustrator, and he talks a lot about his early stages of illustration and how he got into it. And it's funny because he always talks about how he's more of the creative side than the business side. But so he speaks about business for people that are more so on the creative end, like how to actually do the logistics and like the businessy part that's usually so hard for creatives and stuff to do. So like it's really cool because he gives like that actual perspective of somebody that it's hard for. It's like not super easy being like the business person. So he does that. What about you? Do you have any?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, we're just doing free promotion for our fellow podcasters. So I am following the Art Juice, and that's two ladies from Great Britain. They are either just having a conversation among themselves, answering the listener's question, or they have a topic, or sometimes they bring someone for the interview, not always. And they are kind of covering all of that from the creative perspective, from the inspiration, from their technical things, logistical things, and the art business and art marketing stuff as well. So it's kind of a good mixture of everything. And they're just easy to listen to. And what I like about them, they're two different personalities, but they kind of they cohabitate, if that's the right word to say, so nicely. So they kind of gently agree to disagree, and just bringing different perspectives from each of their practices. And I'm binging right now on the Jealous Curator.
Oh my gosh, yes. I love her.
I am so late on this train. She is, I believe, she started doing this podcast in 2015, I believe, and I just started listening to it this year.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm on like season 2 right now.
I totally forgot. Yes, like that was one of the podcasts I listened to early on. And it's so funny because it feels like it's like this hidden gem. Like it's not like I don't see it everywhere. Like even when you search like art podcast, I don't know if it pops up, but like I don't know how I found her, but Danielle Krishna, I think it is.
Krishna,
but
Danielle Krishna.
yeah, I listened to her years ago, and I remember just being so obsessed with like her style of interviews and like how she just talks to different artists. And I found a lot of artists through her.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
she's,
it sounds like she personally knows all of them, although some of the people she interviews are completely like strangers to her.
yeah,
But
she
she kind
does.
of
She's,
knows the right questions to ask, and yeah,
yeah, I
so
love, yeah.
Danielle, if you by chance are listening to this podcast,
Yes.
please interview both of us, okay?
I know. I want to like, yeah, she's really cool. I like her a lot. That reminds me, there's another one, Do It for the Process. It's by Emily Jeffords. She's also another artist that on Instagram, but she does, I don't even know. It's weird because I found her podcast, I think, first, and then ended up following her on Instagram. But yeah, I like that one too. Yeah, there's so many out there though that I'm like probably missing, but yeah, it's really cool listening to different artists' perspectives and like how they
Yeah,
grew their journey. So
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
yeah.
All right. Well, that was so great to talk to you.
Yes, thank you. It was so fun. I'm glad I did this, and thank you for considering me. It was
Well,
really
thank you
fun.
for coming. I'm really, really glad because I've been following you for a while and I was like, I gotta talk to that girl about what she does.
Oh yes, thank you for messaging me. Sometimes it's so funny because like people follow me and like I wish I can like go and see everyone, and then I like don't even know until they message me, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, and I go look at their page and I end up following them. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's people that I don't even know I'm not following, and like they're so cool. So yeah, thank you.
Right. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Courtney. And I will put all the links in the show notes and in the blog post that goes along with the podcast episode. So
Okay.
people can find
Yeah.
your art, people can follow you on Instagram, and
Yeah.
hopefully that you will release more of your jewelry. So because this
Yeah.
podcast episode will be sometime in April, which
Okay.
is a good couple weeks after you launch your new collection of
Mm-hmm.
earrings. So a lot of people will
Yeah.
probably miss it.
Oh
But
no.
we'll hope that you will make more.
I will. Yes, I will. I'll keep going with it. So
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Well, have a great
Um,
day today.
Thank you. You too. We'll
All right.
talk soon. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, she's got a really sparkly personality, doesn't she?
Yeah, and I love her determination. Like she knew from a very young age that she wants to be an artist, and whatever obstacles are going to come her way, she knew that she will work to overcome it and really get her dream come true, no matter how much work it's going to take her. And also seeing beauty in everyday mundane work and obstacles and whatever is coming.
You know, she translates the mundane, the everyday that we sort of don't notice. We just kind of take for granted as we pass through our lives and aren't taking notice of what's going on around us. She captures those moments that we don't necessarily notice and turns them into something spectacular.
Yeah, she's one of those people that, almost immediately when we started talking, I felt like I want to do something together with her. I want to collaborate. And this is why we were talking about, I don't know, meeting one day. And luckily she's right here around the corner, like 40-minute drive or something. So I hope that we will do that one day.
Well, stay tuned. You might hear that collaboration right on this podcast.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get her back.
Well, with that, we hope that you'll visit us at intheartscene.com, where you can view samples of her art and read the accompanying blog post, and share this with your friends. Listen wherever podcasts are being distributed, and we will see you in the art scene.